All right. Thank you and welcome to the August 12th, 2024 meeting of the Nescoin Community Plan Subcommittee. Our first action is to approve the agenda of today's meeting. So I would ask the members to give me a yay or a raise your hand if you approve of the agenda.
Yay.
All right, thank you. Unanimous. And approval of the minutes of July 29th. We will skip that because they're in getting in order at this very moment.
Yeah, they're in Nesco Inn.
So that will be forthcoming in the next meeting. Request for disclosure of conflict of interest by subcommittee members. Does anyone have a conflict of interest in any of today's items on the agenda?
I
Thompson.
do not, Lori.
Okay, none of us have conflict of interest. Guys, R1 and R3 ordinance draft. So did he send that out to just me or did he send that to everyone today?
I haven't
said-
seen it.
I
Okay.
did not have it.
Okay, so trying to think if it was it might have just even been a text. Let me consult my email. Draft ordinance language. So he has a document here. I'll have to, how do I share that in the chat? Can I just drag that to the chat?
You do a share screen, it's down the green button down at the bottom. Oh, it is a text or is it a document?
Well, he sent me a document. I hadn't opened it yet. I wondered if, yeah, I guess I can share screen. So. I'd rather he was here to present it, but either way.
If we want to come back to that, if you'll send it to me when you get it, then I'll put it up on the website.
Okay.
Not
Let's
the
see.
Google Drive,
So
not the website.
I share screen. That should work. Well, it's kind of works.
Stop.
Can you see?
There we go.
Does that work?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see
Is
it.
it big enough for you?
Oh,
I think
babe.
so,
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So we can either wait for him and I can do this again, or we can just look at what he's given us and we see if we have our own questions. It seems like we might have our own questions without a presentation. So let's go ahead and look at what he's prepared. So R1 and R3, these must be red must be the change he's proposing. Wouldn't you guess that?
Yep.
Yeah. So the primary person, I see. So he's been talking about how he wants to clarify. So the primary purpose of the NESC R1 zone is to designate areas for low density, single family residential development. Other compatible uses are also permitted. Suitability of land for low density use is determined by all these other things, and that doesn't change. Here's a message from Guy coming across the airways. Zoom keeps telling me there's another meeting in progress and won't let me in. Oh no, what have I done? Well, let me, that may stay on your, yeah, but I can't get back in there. Sorry, I'm not a highly experienced Zoom guy.
No problem.
So that's when Jeff needs to enable AI companion. No, I don't think I want to do that. Well, I don't think I'm keeping him out, but I don't know how he's, what the problem is.
Unless he's not using the right link.
Yeah, he should be able to go out and come back in, even if he goes through the website to get there.
Uh-huh. Okay, I'll just tell him, go out and come back, try it again.
And I'll forward the invite to him so he can click on maybe if it's the wrong one.
Okay, I've told him that you're sending him the correct link and he should try going out and coming back in. So now I'm theoretically, let's see. I think I see a little bitty thing with you guys in it, and then I had, I don't know where the rest of the screen went. Oh my, why do we have technical problems when the technician is not here? Okay.
So Rand, I think it's hard for me to tell. Let me just see if I can.
Do you still have the
There we
document on
go.
the,
We can still see it,
and you see yourselves over on the corner and everything?
Yeah,
right? But that's okay. I mean, I think the size is fine. The language is there. It's hard for me to see. It looks like there's another page of this.
It's just got two lines that are
There you go.
unchanged.
Okay. Okay, so I think is Guy gonna, so we're gonna check see if Guy can get on, because I think this looks like common sense kind of edits.
Well, I think what I determine, I agree. This is kind of like saying, emphasizing that the purpose of R3 is different than R1. It's and the are also permitted indicates, rather than just they're just shoe-ins, they are permitted, but you have to go through a process to get them, I guess.
Right.
So that would be the clarification, yeah.
And the thing that I think Sarah should be able to clarify for us, Guy will know better than me, is that this is the kind of language that's benign and not going to be an issue, and the county lawyer isn't freaked out. The question I would have about that is, with all this focus on the housing bill, whether it'll be interesting to me to find out if the county says, no, we don't even want to touch this stuff because of the either the state being unhappy because it looks like we're trying to get ahead of the housing law, or the advocates being unhappy, or it's hard to tell who's unhappy these days, but that's a decision for the county to help us with. If they think it's as benign as it looks to me, then we should be fine.
so what's the purpose of having this language in the community plan? I mean, this is basically from the county. So that's kind of a given. So I'm a little bit confused as to what this is adding to the community plan.
We need
other than information.
Yeah, we need Guy to tell us that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it indicates to me an emphasis on the low density single family, and then even for the R3. But it also indicates that R3 is a place where this really makes sense. But I think they're telling us R1 and R3 both make sense as far as the state is concerned. So I don't, it seems like a point is being made, and I don't, from what I can tell, there is a desire on Guy's part, and maybe Lynn's too, to indicate that we primarily want to stay the way we are, with R3 being there can be a motel in an R3, there can be multifamily things already. So I don't know if I agree with it either, if the intent is here to say, no, we just want R1 to be low density single families and not fourplexes. So that's why we need that clarification from Guy.
So
Yeah, I mean,
isn't the,
go ahead.
oh, I thought that the whole thing with the new Senate Bill 406 was that in essence, there are no single family zonings anymore. It's all 1 to 4. So basically, right? And so it seems like what we want to do here is make sure that we acknowledge that we have these zones and we really want them to be used for residential use, and any other use would be secondary, potentially permitted, but not automatic. If we can, I don't know if we can.
We can certainly ask for anything.
Yes,
Right. But I think that the ask should be something that we think is the intention of the community, or that we feel is credible representation of what people want.
right. And I think what Guy, maybe from his planning commission hat, and he's much closer to this than I am, and Sarah should absolutely know the answer to this question off the top of her head, is Lori, your point that the goal is to get, it's 1 to 4 on any currently zoned single family residential development. That is how it is in Portland. I mean, that is how it is in my neighborhood. And what happens is when houses come up for sale that are old and maybe falling apart or something, they usually, you know, the notion is someone could buy that, tear it down and put in a fourplex or a 4 townhouse or there's all kinds of names for them. Tillamook County is different, and Sarah keeps saying that. And so what I would need to understand is it different such that this language allows that, or does the state law just overwhelm that, or what's the fit between the uniqueness of Tillamook County, this language, and the Senate bill? That would be kind of the thing I would need to know. Or Guy may already know.
Yeah, well said. My question is exactly.
Well,
to which I would add, do covenants in deeds override, or are they overridden?
right. You've been asking that for a while to try and get a straight answer. It's hard to get one.
Well, nobody likes to give a legal opinion, especially lawyers.
Well, in many residential settings, the covenants, conditions, and restrictions do override the local zoning laws if they're making it more restrictive, like for instance, what color can you paint your house, etc. So whether it seems like whether SB 406 specifically excludes itself from being overridden by CC&Rs might have, I don't know.
Yeah,
but normally CC&Rs do override the other,
Right,
just
because
the
they're usually more
underlying.
restrictive.
right?
Sarah in that meeting at the art gallery said the CC&R stay intact.
Right. Right,
But-
so if you have a home HOA, then that stuff is in place and that's what holds.
That's right. And then going forward, like future subdivisions with HOAs or properties with HOAs could not retroactively exclude the state's new law, but the ones that are already in place are in place. And
that makes sense, because otherwise you're taking away an attribute that somebody may have purchased land with, you know.
Correct.
And Sarah did say no takeaways.
that's right.
Yeah,
So any
So
so
text,
I've now asked,
oh, go ahead.
oh, well, I just letting you know, I've asked Jeff to help Guy get into the meeting because he did it. He used your link and he still is told there's a meeting going on, but he can't get in.
Okay.
So I don't know why. And so I've asked Jeff to help him out. That's what's going on in the background. Well, we can agree that we'll hope for enlightenment from Guy when we get him on. And I said he could try maybe his phone, maybe he could just do a audio connect. So should we kind of table this and move on and then come back if we can get Guy on?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Okay, so next on the agenda is the discussion of potential changes in building code to address climate issues, increased density. Lynn, I don't know if you have any update on that or if that's in his lap, Guy's lap.
I do not have an update on that.
Okay. So then we come down to a timeline of the community plan based on the outline by Tom. And also I didn't include in that, I'm sorry, Lynn, you had a timeline as well that was mutually compatible, I believe, with the outline. So are we anywhere? I think one of the questions was, are we on schedule? And or if we're not, where are we and how should we keep going in a productive way to meet our deadline?
I think we're actually on schedule,
Okay,
and maybe even ahead. But I think our concern, Tom, was your well-being, and if you needed to space us along differently to accommodate your schedule, we wanted to be sure to include that. I'm calling up the schedule right now on my iPhone, so let me just get that in front of me. But when I looked at it, I actually thought, all things considered, we have done a good job of moving forward. And we've done the public meetings. By the end, we did have the presentation of Senate Bill 406 from Sarah Asher. And we were going to use July and August to use the draft plan to review implementing ordinances.
Mhm.
And then just for Tom's benefit, for everyone's benefit, in September, our goal is for the committee to review the whole draft plan, which is why we wanted to focus on getting these ordinances wrapped up, is to kind of put everything together in a draft and look at it, still with October as our time frame to have the community review and comment on the draft plan. Now, the issue that came up was the FEMA that Sarah raised, Tom, for your benefit. Sarah raised this issue of the FEMA regulations going into effect, and that process may slow the county down in terms of getting things done. And so what we were still discussing in our last meeting and hoping to accomplish is to stay on our original schedule, have a draft that the community had reviewed in October with adoption in November before Thanksgiving, or at least getting it to the county before Thanksgiving, and continuing to proceed on that schedule. And then if the county got waylaid from this FEMA implementation, that's their problem, not ours. We've got our work done. The county's reviewed the work, the community has reviewed the work, and we're on track. There was a little bit of concern at the last meeting that if this FEMA thing happened, we could kind of be blown out of the water. And that's why we wanted to confirm the schedule as it currently exists and as we are currently keeping pace with.
okay. My opinion is that we should proceed as if everything is going to be okay. And if we get blown out of the water, we do. If we don't get blown out of the water, then we're good. So, I mean, we got to go forward. I've put together some of the bones of the proposed draft, and what I'm really missing is some of the things like what's on the screen now, some of the content. Let me go over the content that I think I need to add, and if you could stop sharing.
Yes, I will. There you go.
Okay, and let me get the right one up. Sorry, I wasn't as ready as I thought I was. Okay, all right, now I'll share. And we'll share screen number 2. Okay, so I think an executive summary should be a summary, as in as in maybe half a page, maybe less. So the way that the content seems to be broken down, and I may be missing major points. This is why I'm asking for feedback. But it looks like we got community history component, which I think is going to be 1 page. We've got visions and values, which is the 3 pages. We have state goals, land use analysis. Now, what I had thought in looking at the previous document, it looked like it wasn't really clear in that document what they were aiming for. What I would say is that we should go through each one of the state land use goals and say how they apply. Now, Sarah did a good job of that, and I intend to go back and to the video and pick off the words. So which ones apply to us and how, and just go through that. It's just a matter of, these are facts. So yes,
there's also the resource of the town halls where we brought people to tell us about those land use goals and how they apply to Nesco, from natural sciences and the OSU and all this stuff. I wouldn't suggest you have to watch those, but we may be able to do the transcript AI digestion with some of those as more information besides the one explanation.
okay,
From
fair
Sarah.
enough, fair enough.
So
We could at least start with that.
right.
Okay, back up to the sections. And then a statement of what we believe the impact of 406 is going to be. Now, that may be where Guy's text goes. I don't know. I don't have any content for that. And policies, those are going to be the things that we're going to want to ask for changes. And in Sarah's presentation, one of them a couple of times ago when I was actually there, she wanted policies divided, policies, and then another section was aspirational goals, which are not necessarily ordinances, but things we'd like to have done. They may be things that we want to ask the state for, or projects or whatever. All of these, of course, have to be related to the values, but those. Is there something else that needs to be here that I haven't thought of, that I hadn't understood?
Tom, on my version of the document that you're sharing screen on, it's not legible. So is that something I need to do on my computer to get it bigger?
Let me get it bigger.
There we go.
That?
Thank you.
Okay, so those are the main chapters. And the question is there another chapter I'm missing, or 2 or 3?
I think this looks really good. I do think there was some analysis of which goals affect Nesco in the last community plan, and some of that may be helpful.
Okay.
The impact of Senate Bill 406, I think Sarah did a good job presenting that. There might be online a synopsis of that somewhere that we can use. I have not looked yet, but there may be, or the county itself may have done an impact already because they're kind of specialized in that space. The proposed policies are great, and the aspirational goals, we may just want to use a word other than goals, because in land use, goals are the goals with a capital G and a capital G. So aspirational objectives, or something of that nature might be less confusing.
aspirational something. Okay, I'll work on that. Good. See, I don't know the magic words.
I know,
No.
it's a code or something.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah, well, it is. Okay.
So we got Guy on board here.
Okay.
My goodness.
Well, Guy, you probably felt for much longer how I did when I had started the process of opening the meeting and the screen didn't look anything like I remembered it. I didn't know what to do, but I pushed something and it worked.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
believe me, I tried about 8 different ways to get in here.
It's a very
Busted.
exclusive group, you know.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta get past the doorman.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how much of that you heard, Guy, from my outline. of
Nothing.
Nothing, okay.
Okay.
So on the screen is the bullets there are basically the chapter titles. And community history, I'm gonna boil what we had down to about a page. Values, visions and values, basically it's the 3 pages we've had a chance to look at. State goals and land use analysis, a couple of different sources, but basically list all of the state goals and how they affect us. Impact of 406, we got some information of that from Sarah's presentation, so that needs to be folded in. Then the proposed policies, which, you know, kind of like your bailiwick, and then the aspirational stuff, which is not having to do with ordinances, but having to do with things that we'd like to have happen. Do you see any topics that I've missed?
Well, forgive me again for just trying to catch up here, but were we thinking that the more detailed community history would go in an appendix?
Yes, yeah. We'll save it someplace. I think if it's the appendix or whatever. Right now, what I'd like to do is just keep the document readable. And if people are interested, I'll just refer them to the appendix. And there'll be an appendix also of the previous requests and their disposition. Those are the two appendices that I'm aware of.
So, another quick reaction, Tom. The vision and values, without going back and looking at them right now, kind of really describe where Neskowin has been, where Neskowin is, and where Neskowin intends to continue in the future in terms
Hopefully.
of both those. So then how do you differentiate that from what's aspirational?
The aspirational would be asks. For instance, we could ask for better access to the beaches. We could ask for, you know, a path between say South Beach Road and the village, which would be really nice.
A new
So
fire
I've-
hall.
Yeah,
New
no,
fire hall.
move the fire hall. So I think of those things. I mean, aspirational, the term aspirational to me is less kind of content based or something. You know, I have an aspiration to be, you know, president of the United States at some point in my life. But if there are things that we believe that we would like to see happen in the future, but we recognize the difficulty because of whether finances, like moving the fire hall, or you know, kind of solidifying the beach access issues, which is a county and local issue because they don't have the money, or, you know, so there could be financial restrictions. Our desire maybe to have residential zones to be primarily for residential properties. Anyways, that's just my quick reaction to the term aspirational. But
The only reason I used aspirational is that Sarah used it. I am not married to any of these terms.
yeah,
So if you have a better one, I'd be very happy to.
well,
do
I
it.
would like to, and I could see, is Sarah online here?
No.
I could see why the county would use the term aspirational because it makes it sound like, here's what we dream of doing or want.
Okay,
And I would be more direct about
Okay.
what we would like to see. And so I would come up with a term, which I don't have at this moment, that makes it less of a dream but more things that we believe should happen, but recognizing there are current barriers to that being the case, whether they be financial, whether they be state or local regulations.
How about directions for the future? At least as a placeholder.
Yeah, as a placeholder, I like it better than aspirational. Yeah.
Okay. You don't like a word, it's gone.
Don't give him too much power, Tom.
Well, I have veto power over, if you
Yeah,
have power of
Person
the
who
pen.
writes gets lots of power and should have it. The one thing to say that I think was related to this, as I think about what we call it, is this whole discussion that Sarah's had on 2 or 3 occasions at the public meetings, which I have found very interesting. This discussion that much of what Nescoin has already put in its plans helps it get to where it wants to be now. That she always talks about our height restriction being easier than other communities, that the lot size, that the setbacks and all that we got it right a while ago. And the fact that those are in place are a huge benefit to us in the face of Senate Bill 406 and other initiatives. So one of the things that it seems we might put in that category, directions for the future, are things that, that would help us in the future as the world changes. And so that, whatever that looks like. And so if there are smart things for community planning that we don't have right now, that we would like to have in the future, it would be good to put those building blocks in, and maybe we call it building blocks for the future. I'm trying to think of give you an example of such a thing. So for example, we have this provision so far that the sewer line is, that where you're going to build density has to have the right infrastructure provided and available, water, sewer, that kind of stuff. I'm trying to think of things building blocks that we would want to get in place now. For example, if we were back in the day, the whole thing was to preserve your solar access. I'm dating myself, but 30 years ago in the energy world, that's what you worried about a lot, is what are people doing right now that they're going to build that is really going to prevent solar and alternative energy getting traction. So that's what I don't have suggestions for what that is. I might when I go back through and listen to the public meetings. But I think directions for the future is great, and we should just be thinking about what is it, the pathway to South Beach, the connecting path to South Beach, all those things. I think we should work hard to get those things in there, because Sarah keeps telling us that one of the best and most effective uses of the community plan is when the county is making decisions about other things and grants, etc. They look back to the community plan to see if that's consistent. And so we want to think about this chapter, if you will, in that context of what groundwork can we lay that will serve us in the future, just like some of the groundwork laid 20 years ago is helping us a great deal now inadvertently. I mean, good planning is good planning, as planners like to say, but clearly Nescoin did some smart things that are paying dividends today.
That sounds good. One of the things that we found in the bylaws committee is that we got lots of good input of when we had these open reviews. So if we can get a start on that list, we'll
Yeah.
probably have great additions to it. But I think we need to have a start so people get thinking along the right lines.
Yep.
So can you take on give us a couple of points to expand on that?
Yes.
Well,
And I need to really think about it, because I think what will spur that thought for me is kind of, what are the building blocks we already have in play? I mean, and one of the things I can't answer, Guy, you may know, or Lori, you may know. I just don't know what the tipping point is on the sewer and water system. Do we have any sense on how close they are right now to being at capacity? Do we know what that looks like for those two major infrastructure pieces?
I think water, I know, being on the board, and we just completed a study several months ago that included just that. What is our future capacity now and future capacity? The system itself, the infrastructure is fine. We may alter it if we add Wainema and Horizon View, but that would be something totally different, not affecting really Neskowin. The issue with water, of course, is the actual product that's delivered, water. And right now, we've come close to in end of August, September, as to having a water emergency. I think, remember, about 5-6 years ago, we actually had one.
Yeah.
So it's not an infrastructure issue. It's the product itself that we're
Right.
totally dependent on nature to deliver. Sewer, I just don't know. I do know that when the plan development was going in, where the current art places, the Tates, the 31 acres
Yep.
east of 101, when they were talking about 120 tiny homes on that 31 acres, the sewer district at least said that they could handle that. They would have to put some more infrastructure under 101, but they said that they had the capacity. Now, I remember them saying that. I don't know anything of why they said that or on what basis, but so yeah, I don't know. I mean, their problem, of course, is they have they have the pond, the settlement pond, and they're really that's their restriction, is their current plant facility. So and then the other thing for them, of course, is they don't serve the whole district. And if they did serve the whole district, what would that look like for them? I mean, it would take major dollars of upgrade. They'd have to go up 101. It just would be a real kind of crazy thing for them to do. But so yeah, I just don't know about sewer. Water, it's all about the water.
Okay, so Lori, you had a question.
Just wanted to expand on Tom's statement about a pedestrian access between South Beach and Neskowin Village while I was in my mind, and I didn't forget to say it. And I think, I don't know if it's in future directions or we can make it part of ordinances or something, but I would like to see a safe pedestrian, bike, scooters, skateboard way from every neighborhood that's part of Neskowin, a way for them to get to the beach safely without driving a car.
I think that's an excellent thing. And by the way, I think Ran, you owe me a map of the neighborhoods.
I believe that's accurate. And I'm trying to think, I just saw, well, I think Sarah had one on one of the last presentations, so we might have to type it off one of her.
She did. It wasn't
document.
very easy to see if you were on the Zoom meeting. It was almost impossible to read, but I would love to see that
Okay.
document.
My assignment continues, and I saw it when it flashed on the screen. I said, there it is. And then it kept going and I went, "Well, now what do I do?" So I have to get it.
Well, they
Yeah.
should, the county, let's not be afraid to just ask the county to send us
Oh, I
one.
know, right, but it's, if it was in a document they handed out or it was sent, it's easier than
Yeah,
if I go
Yeah.
ask her and then she never remembers. So,
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
I
this is,
can do
this
that.
is a placeholder.
There it is.
Right, well, there's a place.
Yeah.
Well, I've written that down. I'll try and follow through on that for you, Tom.
Okay,
We've been talking in the NCA about having a greater mission, and one of the things that came up in that was the idea of moving emergency services out of the tsunami zone. And also,
what an idea.
yeah, which is just basic, common sense, but also at that point, could that be for the sewer and water districts, offices, it's up and out of the trouble area, and maybe even a community place for performances, or, make an effort to make it a community center, even though it's probably up the road a little. You'd have to go through Beechcrest or something if you wanted to walk, because there's limited crossing. But anyway, it's a idea of planning for that and getting a vision of that, and then if that's built into the community plan, it really strengthens your hand in when you go for grants and go to the county for it.
Right.
Okay,
So one of the things, and we didn't talk about this, Tom, and I'm happy to chase down maps of the county too. We should have some maps in this document.
Yeah.
We've got to have, here's the boundary of the community plan. Here's the Nescoin beyond the boundary, but we've got to make it that useful of a document that you have immediate access to a quality map.
yeah, let's see, where is that? Oh, there it is. I've got, this one has actually got the community on, but I've got a bunch of maps I created for the bylaws committee. So I
Oh,
can
great.
do that, but I don't have the neighborhoods. That's the information I don't have.
Okay. It's somewhat subjective, but I think that it's, so Guy, do you separate the saddle from Beechcrest? Or is it part of Beechcrest?
I think it's part of Beechcrest.
Okay, it might
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
a funny,
But I can make it gauzy. I mean, I don't have to have hard lines,
Right.
Okay.
we can do color splotches.
well, it's
There's
fun
not
to
so many
see
that we
like the
can't
saddle
color-code it.
written in there, even if it's not a neighborhood, it's a people acknowledge its place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, this is all good content and good.
You know, one of the things,
reminders
one
again.
of the things that, and I know that Rand, you brought this up occasionally over the years, that the if Nescoin, if there was damage through a storm or whatever, or we had some ocean damage to some part of the village, that we would have an ability to retreat onto east of 101. And as we know that, a lot of our land east of 101, across 101 from Nescoin, is zoned forest. The idea that the community could retreat into forest zones. I mean, and I know that, I almost take an act of legislative act or something, but it still could be something that we should mention in our plan, that Nescoin still desires. I mean, we want to continue as a community, even if part of us is destroyed by nature, and maybe that the retreating. One of the things I found out the past few weeks is a good part of that Schlichting property that's for sale, and I think it's about 50-60 acres of that 100 plus acres that they're selling is zoned recreation management, which I have no idea how they got that. Whenever it happened, who knows? But in recreation management, you can have one house every 5 acres. So as I looked at it, they could put 10 to 12 houses back along the old golf course. And of course, right now it's all forest land. And that's one thing that, as I was thinking in the future, if homes were ever damaged or destroyed, people wanted to rebuild, stay in the community of Nesco, that's one area they could rebuild. But there's other forest lands up above, and that could be looked at as potential areas for housing. But anyway, it's a
Yeah,
thought.
it's kind of tricky. It's like getting changes on the state highways. People have to die before they say it's a legitimate change.
Yeah.
And the county says, well, you gotta kind of have the tsunami before we can change the zoning. Even if,
One good thing about the fire station, and this happened as I've been on the planning commission, the people in Rockaway have moved their emergency service folks. They purchased some forest land east of 101, and I think 10 acres or something, and they're moving like their fire station stuff, their other services out of the tsunami zone across east of 101 to this area. And I think my memory of all the language and rules and whatever ordinances, you can move if it's an emergency service, you can redo the forest zone to allow for an emergency services like a fire station or whatever. So if we look to move the fire station, we're not really limited. We just need a place we can build it and good access to 101. So
well, that's good to know. Or this.
We would have to have a bond. I mean, our fire district, clearly it would take a major bond to move it and educate people why the fire station needs to get out of the tsunami zone.
Part of the educational process of getting everyone out of the tsunami zone.
Exactly. Let's think clearly here. Anyways.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good brainstorming. We get the document in front of us. It stimulates all kinds of good thinking about this. It's very helpful. So back to anything else that we can do for the document. I guess we just need to filter it right to Tom when we get it. If we have an assignment like a neighborhood map or a overlay or something that is going to be helpful and a descriptive document, I will get it to you, Tom. I'm leaving for a week, but other than that, when I get back, it'll be front and center.
Okay,
Thank you.
sounds good.
All right. So do we want to pursue this subject on the agenda or make some clear assignments of things we want to help fulfill these specific categories of the document?
So where are we in our agenda? I know the first thing on the agenda wasn't my proposed language change to the ordinances.
Was, and we paused so you could get back. So
Okay.
might be good to go back and get that.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll go back up the agenda and I will share that document again.
So while Rand's doing that, as we all know, the county is very resistant to making any changes on use, outright or conditional use. So if we are going to, so we're very limited in what we can do without the county's support. There's nothing legally that prevents us from making these recommendations, and there's nothing legally preventing the county approving those. It's just that the expectation that somebody is going to bring suit, a taking suit, a Measure 56, and they're going to have to defend it. And so that's what's preventing it. The county, as we have heard, is not interested and getting involved in another legal action after the extended STR thing. So, and I think they're also anticipating some legal action regarding the FEMA changes that we're going to have to make. I think that's going to be a mess legally, and I don't know, and I'm sure that they're anticipating some things. So what I thought was, even slight word changes, as you can see what I did in R1 and R3, was just to say that essentially that dwellings are the priority in these zones. And other uses that are listed, both outright and conditionally, are other uses. But the primary use, the primary purpose of residential zones is for residences. And it sounds minor, but I think again, from whatever 7-8 years on the planning commission, words matter. And if there's any wording that could influence, these decisions are not black and white when they come to the planning commission. There's so much gray sometimes, and a little maybe forceful direction in some ways that says, this is our primary purpose. Now, saying that, it's clearly Sarah would have to run it by the attorney, of course, and would be that considered a taking? I don't think that's a taking. We're not cutting out any use. We're just saying this is the primary use. And it certainly fits with everything with 406, Senate Bill 406, with the county's housing plan, all of that. We have so much to back up, even making the simple language changes like that. The other thing I put in there, besides those two, was looking at the farm and forest use as an outright use. And, listening to the conversation at the CAC meeting on Saturday, and reading, and I know people in that discussion were focused on bed and breakfast and requirements for bed and breakfast. I was more focused on, what does farm use in an R1 zone allow? And there are some very specific guidelines that the state has put out in the document 2022 about what kinds of farm uses can occur in non-farm zones. And I think it's something, and when Sarah comes on at some point, this needs to be either we need to refer to a specific section in the code, which I don't think we have yet, or in the comp plan, which is so broad, or in some state document, which there is, to what exactly is allowed in R1 zone regarding farm and farm uses. So that's why I put that in there, and I expect Sarah to react to it. But I think it needs to be clearly defined what that means.
So Guy, my understanding that currently farm and forest are approved outright, and
Yes.
you're proposing they not be.
No, I'm proposing that we define the use.
Okay.
And make reference to guidelines, which we may want to have. We may want to make some of those definitions ourselves. I don't know if Sarah would right away get nervous about a takings, but at least let people know, refer people to a specific ordinance or guidance from the state as to what that means in a non-farm area.
Right. So part of what I know, and this would depend on how Tillamook County is positioned vis-a-vis the other counties, but this is the stuff that, first of all, because farm and forest protection was the origin of land use planning in Oregon.
Right.
It is the most documented, explained, litigated, lobbied. This is where the largest field of expertise is in land use planning. So having Sarah say if that is even possible or desirable before we start taking that on is really critical, because it's the holy grail.
No, absolutely. And I think what we would request, if I had would recommend that our committee request from Sarah, what is the definition of farm and forest use in a non-farm and forest zone? And is there any, let's say, I mean, my lack of, I don't know what term I'd use. Is there any, in a sense, any way that we in this community plan can propose limitations or changes to those uses? That would be the question, and she needs to really weigh in on all that. I got a document over the weekend, as I think I said, the 2022 document that really describes this well. It's not an ordinance language, it's guidance language. And that's the question for Sarah is, where in the ordinances does it describe, what can we refer people to say, this is what farm in particular, this is what farm use is in a non-farm zone. And I think we need to be clear on that. And my reference, of course, coming out of Saturday's discussion about the people doing the horse trips and basing them in an R1 zone.
Right. I was going to say it's horses, it's goats, it's chickens.
Right.
Rabbits.
Rabbits.
Yeah,
How many rabbits do I have without having a farm?
Yeah.
Thousands.
Yeah. My dogs love them.
Yeah, God.
They haven't caught one yet. But boy, they love chasing them.
They're just good for the exercise.
Yep.
So Guy, I think in the discussion when you weren't here, we were wondering if this was to focus that the primary purpose was low density, single family residential development. So, I mean, depends on how you emphasize or read that sentence. It could be saying low density is the primary thing in single family residential development, as opposed to the new law, which says if you can have in R1 appropriate areas, you can have a fourplex. So I misread it in that way, thinking and I didn't understand the intention because it seems like contrary to the new law. So there's a misinterpretation for you that.
Okay, I can take a look at that.
Without,
Okay.
yeah.
So this text would be in the proposed ordinances section?
Yeah.
Okay.
I went and looked at the comprehensive plan to see if there were changes that we could recommend to that. And I have no idea. I asked Sarah at one planning commission hearing if 406 was going to, in fact, require any changes to the county's comprehensive plan. She seemed to say, well, she said no. I don't know how that's possible, but we'll wait and see how it all plays out. Yeah, I don't know, but Rand, I'll take a look at that language, and you know what we're getting at is when the planning commission or when the community development planners take a look at an application for use within a residential zone, they know what is considered in Nescoin as the primary purpose of a residential zone, and that is housing. So we'll figure out a wording on that.
Well, I think the trick is to not have the primary purpose be linked to low density.
Yes, I get it.
Family.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
get it.
the trick is some comma or something to
Yeah, I'll look at that randomly. I'll
shift the
make that
meaning.
change. No, I appreciate that.
Okay. Okay, so your continued work
Assignment.
on this is valuable and challenging, I can tell, because we don't know where this county's gonna come down, and Sarah's not coming to the meetings to clarify that, so.
Yeah.
So Guy?
Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, so one possibility is Senate Bill 406 provides the, has, they used to call it supersiding, where state policy becomes so dominant that you can, override comprehensive plans. And I don't think it has that kind of mechanism, although it had some kind of mechanism, because in Portland, it just went boom, and neighborhoods were suddenly, every lot under certain specifications, which were pretty broad, had fourplexes available to them if the house was bulldozed or if it had no dwelling already on it. But so there may be some kind of super status that was given to that bill, given how high a priority it was. But the second question I have is whether and we just have to ask Sarah, is whether Sarah is going to say, look, Senate Bill 406 says R1 is R1, and you can't wordsmith it by saying the primary purpose, because R1 is R1 and it can have a fourplex on it because of state law. I mean, I don't think I'm articulating that very well, but one of the interesting questions will be whether 406 carries with it the ability to kind of run over the primary purpose. Because in Portland, the experience is you absolutely can run over the primary purpose.
I think that the primary purpose of 406 is to increase housing and housing density. And
Right.
what we're saying and what we're trying to say, and the way we reword the purpose statement, is that we agree that residential zones should have as a primary purpose housing. And whether it's high density or whatever, that we can play with that. But it's these other uses, and that's what I brought up to Sarah at a couple of meetings. I mean, 406 gives us, in my opinion, gives us the backing to make some changes in here. And she's, again, they don't want to make use changes. So I don't know how that's all going to play out. We got 406 on one hand, and 406 supersedes all county, city rules.
Okay, so it does. So,
okay. Yeah, that's why we don't have to have a Measure 56 hearing in Tillamook County or any city or whatever, because the legislature, anything coming out of the legislature supersedes anything we have. So the city of Portland, I know, a lot of people got caught in this. So I mean, it's the law of the land, so to speak. Yeah, so we'll see. I'll word it so that it's clear that what we're doing is focusing on housing, and we can't just fool with the uses, which is crazy to me. But
okay, thanks. Thank you.
Yeah.
It looks like if you just took out low density single family and just said designate areas for residential development, you'd have it, but I don't know how that distinguishes R1 from R3 that much, so.
Well, the difference, that low density versus medium to high density would be the difference. We don't have to have single family.
So, yeah, I think simple edits could do it. If that then articulates correct goal. All
and of
right.
course, what complicates it in Neskowin is Neskowin was platted before these rules came in. So we have a lot of 5,000 square foot lots that are in low density. And then some, I mean, you can't, it's, as we're plotting other areas or something, it's by size of lot and other kinds of things. What does it allow? Take a look at what happens to Halley. But here we're kind of working with what we got. We got a lot of these small lots that
Right.
don't meet the minimum of 7,500 square feet. So that's going to be the limitation on housing, because you still have the setbacks, and that's something we'll eventually consider. Do we want to, as I think Sarah brought up, but maybe at the last meeting, I can't remember, that we had over at the gallery, there's some communities that have reduced this or increased the size of the setbacks because of being in high density areas and noise issues. I think Lori was one of those who brought up, the other kind of implications of having high density housing. And so, there are things I think we as a committee can be considering in terms of those areas, but that comes not under the ordinance here. It comes under building structures and all those kinds of things, which Sarah covered before at that meeting.
So, Guy, what's your sense of this whole, one of the things that is surprising to me is that we're trying to get density in a tsunami zone, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which
Yeah.
seems counterintuitive. That's like that's how Portland, when my immigrant grandparents were coming to Portland, all the Russian Germans and all the Black people in Portland were kind of said, yep, it's all that affordable housing, it's out in Vanport.
Yeah.
And then Vanport flooded, and everyone at the low end of everything lost everything.
Yeah.
And so to me, part of what is questionable is we didn't know 100 years ago the tsunami zone was going to be where it is. Now we know. And again, I think the lot price is going to work against a lot of this. That's not within anyone's control, just because of the housing bill doesn't control the market. So, but also the wisdom of looking for increased density in a tsunami zone reminds me of something that would be done like in Louisiana or something. I'm serious. I don't get it entirely, but
I don't get it either. And Lynn, if we were sitting here and we had the freedom of actually rezoning the village in a way that was considered safety first,
right,
and lot size and other kinds of things, we would do it very differently.
Yes.
But the high density, there are high density areas right along breakers and down McMinnville that are in the tsunami hazard zone. So you're exactly right. And this has come up at different times. It's been raised, not in Nescoin situation and other situations where people want, they are putting places. Let's take a look at some of the houses that have been built, like over in South Beach. There's a house built on the beach that can house 18 people. It's crazy. So yeah, I wish somehow,
Right, where's the magic wand to say reality's more important than your?
Yeah. So we have the coastal hazard overlay zone, which talks about protecting people and property, and then when people want to build what they want to build, we can't prevent. And we talked about this a lot in that committee about restricting numbers and things, and it just wasn't going to work.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But well, you're right on, Lynn. I'd love to.
I'm still
take out the
struck.
pencil. Redraw.
Yeah, I'm still overwhelmed by an 18-person house too. That sounds to me like a motel, but
it is.
I just
It
have a
is.
small family, maybe, but okay.
You can rent it. You can rent that's a short-term rental.
I've got one across the street that's that big.
Yeah.
7 bedrooms.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yep,
That's the craziness of all this.
yep.
Oh. Well, what else do we have today?
On our agenda, where are we?
Okay. Well, we'll leave this in your hands, but I have a lot of notes of things that I want to understand better. So let's see. We didn't get to discussion, but we're skirting on discussion of potential changes in building code to address climate issues and increase
Yeah,
density. That's what we were just talking about, really.
so my,
So I
Randall,
have a,
go ahead.
What?
I have a question about that.
Yes, Lori.
If there's another community that anyone knows of that we can look at for some examples of, to get us started to think about what we possibly could do in relation to making us more resilient to climate change with the changes of 406 and of the density issues. I'm sure there's some resources that could help us get started, and I don't know where those are.
So Lori, what I was thinking, and I haven't done this, and I think I may have promised to do this at our last meeting, was to work with our new head of the building division in the county, and essentially say, given what we may anticipate with climate change, the increased storm intensity, higher winds, those kinds of things, what standards are out there that he could feel good about recommending for structures that are being built, whether in Neskowin or any community along the ocean. So that's where I thought I'd start, with our own building people, and maybe they have some other ideas too, like you said, of other communities that have done that.
So I remember the architect who was lead guy with the engineer of the tsunami tower and escape route.
Yeah.
Paul has extensive exposure to different examples around the world where people have altered their situation in consideration of tsunamis, earthquakes, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So that's I didn't pursue that. No one seemed to be interested in any of the, there was very little public interest in the tower and the escape route and the architecture and everything, which blew my mind, of course, because I love that stuff. But Paul would be a good resource for that. So
that'd be great. Maybe why
I'll,
don't you have contact with him? Why don't you write him and say what we're thinking and see if he has some ideas? Yeah.
you don't remember Paul's last name, do you? Otherwise, I can find it because I have lots.
Yeah, I can't remember. No.
He and his brother have the firm. Anyway, just on Lori's question, yeah, there are resources out there, and Paul Lewis, there you go.
Oh, good get.
And
So also, besides just the climate ones, just the more generic, we're increasing density, and how can we build in not decreasing people's quality of life? Because I think in reality, that's the opposition that most people have to increased density, is they think it's going to take away their quiet enjoyment of their own property if they have too many people too close to them. So if we can look to other communities to see what they've done to both increase that density and have everybody happy about it.
okay, I had written noise and privacy for high density areas needs to be accounted for as far as livability, and that's what you just said. Is, yeah, so Paul would be a good resource for that also. So maybe I can find a couple things out from Paul.
Then you can write them up and give them to me.
That's correct. Make them suitable for the document. Give them to you. And you'll make them more suitable for the document.
I'll do my best.
About half as large.
You kind of think of it in terms of, let's just use a gross term, people pollution. And the kinds of pollution people produce are noise, excessive light, the own visual, that you don't have a private space, so you see other people, so it's the visual of other people, making yourself visible to others. So how do we reduce light?
And
coming from
barbecue
others?
smoke.
Barbecue smoke, yeah, we can have smokeless barbecues. So light, noise, people, seeing other
Air.
people.
Yeah.
Trying to think of what else is obnoxious about empty beer bottles and the front steps. Anyways,
Yeah. No, there are issues out there.
I
Okay,
agree.
well,
It is a good thing to pursue, and I agree with Lori. I mean, there might be ways, and light and noise are two of the things that, that can interfere.
well, one thing go ahead, Lori.
I was gonna say, I hate to bring up the SDR issue because I know that it was very divisive in our community, but there was a huge conversation about noise and light and all of these issues in the SDR debate. And the SDR people did come up with some guidelines that they thought were going to help those questions. And quite a few of the SDR people said, if this applies to us, it should apply to everyone.
Yeah.
And the reality is a lot of those things would help in density. I mean, that was the issue with the SDRs, was it was creating density and some people felt like it was density of people that didn't have as much ownership in respecting the community. But the reality was it was the density. And so, I mean, we could start there and see if there's some issues there that we could just apply in a broader sense. And perhaps the SDR community would respect that we were trying to treat people equally.
Well, Lori, it may work out that under the previous agenda item where we had that in Tom's table of contents, the aspirational asks or building blocks for the future. It may be that we could make some kind of a statement like that, such as, barbecue smoke, deck, lights, private space, etc. That for STRs and others alike, the need to respect your neighbors, whether they're renting, owning, or whatever, in appreciating those values. I mean, I think that, so I'm going to add that to my little stack of stuff to get to Tom, because I do think one of the things that we struggle with in Nescoin, some parts of Nescoin are very, very dense already, right? There's where all the little houses are like right on top of each other. And I think one of the things that works is we have a fair degree of civility most of the time, where people can kind of say, okay, it's after 11 o'clock and we need you to just, quiet it down a little bit. And yes, we understand 4th of July is different from the 3rd of July or the 2nd of July or so I'll just make a note and try and tackle some of that in my thing.
My experience is there's no difference between the 1st and the 6th of July.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I also would caution us to be careful in our language about potentially not targeting STR, but maybe vacation usage, visitor usage. It just seems like those 3 initials cause a tenseness in people before they get to even think about the statement that's involved.
I
And
agree. I don't think we should have that term at all in the, we'll just avoid it altogether.
Yeah,
but I do think that visitors and owners, and we should consider everybody.
right.
And-
So
Yep. Yep,
Our visions and values do mention visitors, so I mean, we're covered there. We can certainly reinforce it other places, but
okay, those are good discussions. All right, so we're to the sharing of the draft of the vision and values to date. So Lori, did you ever get your edits to Tom? You were doing a lot?
I'm
this-
sorry, I had a lot going on, but
Yeah.
Tom, there was one place in the vision and values that was talking about safety, and it specifically it addressed tsunami safety, and I just was hoping it could get broadened to include tsunami, floods, wildfires, like all different severe storms, electrical outages, maybe even, I don't know, but to expand the concept to make sure we included all sorts of different natural
that's-
catastrophes.
I'm looking at it right now and looking for tsunami, and I don't see it there specifically. See, under resilience.
Safety, under
Yeah, it was
safety.
under safety. Because this will be important, especially in ideas of moving fire stations and different things where we want to emphasize safety in our community.
And maybe I wasn't looking at the most current draft, perhaps.
Should have been revision 1 is the latest one. It's on the website. And the only difference between 0 and 1 is Guy's input. So if you could send me a note.
I'll look back through it and I'll send it to you.
Okay,
Yeah. I think it's good anytime we see a word, an intent, anything like that, that makes us scratch our head. We should scratch our head with Tom scratching his head too.
You know, one of the things on safety, the other day I happened to park in the state
Wayside.
parking lot, Wayside. And I was going over to the cafe, and I was walking up, and I took a look at the sign there. I took a picture of it. I can send it to you guys, of all the instructions about and warnings about going out onto the beach.
yeah.
Scary, huh?
It is
Welcome to
so
the beach. You could
complicated.
die.
It is so complicated and so crazy. There are so many no's, so many like pictures of things with X's through them, you know, lines through them. And I just looked at this and I says, as a communication tool, this may be the worst thing I've ever seen to inform people about what you can do on the beach, what kinds of activities are okay, you know, don't X, whatever. And then, you know, also the concerns, as we all know, it seems like every year people get kind of washed out there. So don't climb the rock. You know, if you do, you're going to pay for being saved. Anyways, I just was wondering if that's something too that we should, in general, I don't have any suggestions yet. And it's the same when I go onto the beach, I go onto the Corvallis beach access. That's where I park and go on. And it's the same thing. I mean, it's just like 10 signs, 10, it's not quite as like a whole billboard of signs like it is in the state and Wayside. But it's all these things like somebody posted up another warning, you know, about 10 different things. We just have to have a better way to communicate with people about safety issues, concerns, what activities are okay and what to be concerned about. Anyways, that's just a thought.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I have some sense, Guy, and it could be just my age, that people aren't paying attention to safety anymore because they're overwhelmed by everything. And that whether it's because they think their iPhone's going to get them out of a emergency situation or God knows what, but and
Yeah,
I'm speaking that as someone who did climb Proposal Rock and got stuck there, at 8 o'clock at night with my parents having no way to determine where we were. So I have a different risk comfort level, but I hear what you're saying, and I just don't. It's like the earthquake stuff. They've told us all 10,000 times to get water in our garages, that the number
Yeah.
one thing is water in your garage. And I bet if you checked Oregon right now, that's 1% of the population that's put water in their garage.
yeah.
I don't get it, but I share your concern, but I don't know whether we've got too many signs up or too much fear or just too much throwing up my hands. There's too much going on. I can't focus anymore. I don't know what it is, but it's a real problem.
I think if somebody, some kind of person who knew something about communication, I mean, people were looking at that in 10, 15 seconds. So there's got to be a way to present information and draw people to more important information on that sign. I just think, anyways, it's something I don't even know who's. Pardon?
Talk to the state. That's a tough nut to crack with those guys.
Well, and that's the state one, but the ones that like Corvallis and Mount Angel, they're similar. It's just like people throwing up a sign. Okay, I got my watch out for riptide sign. It's they're among the other 10 things that are hanging on that pole. So anyways, got to be a better way.
Well, the agenda item of shared draft of vision values to date, that has to do with referring to the September 2nd meeting or September 1st meeting of the NCA that brings the community together. And we did another meeting where we got them to vote on indicate their interest on the vision and values. So it seems like we need to present them where we are at this point in time, at least to put a copy on their seat and they can leave with it, knowing that it's still a draft, but it's in its narrative form and such. And so I would encourage us all, including myself, to reread it very carefully and find if there's any things, given the discussions today, that we go, oh, we could make that more clear about that issue, or just so we do, so that we get our edits in before we throw it to the wolves. And they're seeing, what have these guys been doing for 2 or 3 years? No. So I think that anyway, I just encourage us to do that, so we feel very, very confident in the work that we've done so far, and that all these people are going to look at it like for the first time ever. So
Are we going to meet before we print something?
well,
I mean, if we come
well,
up,
that's,
if we reread this again, have some thoughts about a couple of word changes or whatever, I don't know how we get those done without us meeting.
Well, we can put it on the website and poll individuals. We'll have to be careful about not making a meeting, but but if I can get I'll turn the responses as quickly as I can. And I just looked at it again. I don't have the term draft on it anywhere, so I will identify it as being a draft. So there will be an R2. So if you want your stuff included in R2, get it to me quick.
Okay.
We do have one more meeting before the
I was gonna
NCA
say.
meeting.
Yeah.
There is one more meeting.
Right. So I think it's the 26th. It would be 2 weeks from today, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not looking even at a calendar. I just did arithmetic. So let me double check my arithmetic.
It's the 26th, and then the NCA meeting is a week after that. So If we
Right.
made any changes at the next meeting, there'd be a week to get something printed.
Okay,
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, and we can send stuff to Tom if we read the document and we see something, we can send it to Tom.
In
As soon
advance,
as
but
we
I mean,
do
if,
that, and then, so then we can, in that meeting, we can review the document together, and I think that would be a great opportunity to do that, and then anything that happens at that moment, and then we can get something printed to distribute. Does
Yeah.
that sound somewhat
Yeah.
realistic, Tom?
Yep,
Okay.
somewhat realistic.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, that's a very helpful one, I think, to just know we got some work, and we'll have that be an important part of the next meeting. So,
just a logistic question. Do we just send it to Tom and nobody else? Or do we
you can blind copy other people.
literally to
So,
each person?
so the way I understood it from Jeff in the early part is you can blind copy everyone into it, and the key is when you respond, if the person who got the blind copy responds, they just respond to the person who sent it individually. It's not a return to everybody. That becomes a meeting. So individual things with between the BCC and the primary person that it's intended for, I think are legit. And then it's a one-on-one. So we can still have one-on-one conversations.
Okay.
So, yeah, what?
Nope, good.
Okay, so the logistics of the August 12th thing, meeting, I assume Sarah's gonna be there, but I'm also sending the request for our own digital projector and owl and all that stuff. I'm presenting that to the NCA as a grant. So I think I sent that out to you guys and you had a look at it, and it seemed like it
Yeah.
was what we needed, or
The
what
comment
needed.
I had on it is that you put other things that you'd like to have. I think that diluted the message somewhat. So
Yeah.
if you make it a single ask for this package, and don't tell them what you're not asking for.
Okay, I'll review that document to totally understand that, but I agree it should be succinct and to the point and not with a bunch of other stuff out there too. So I'll work on that, and you guys will see it before I provide it to them.
Did you say August 12th meeting?
Well, today's meeting,
Yeah,
and then August 26th,
yeah.
next
And
meeting.
do we have no other meeting? I thought you
Well,
mentioned something about
that's
whether
the other
Sarah.
thing that's the next thing is the special meeting of FEMA flood plan with Sarah. And I had understood from you that you were trying to understand how we were going to proceed without Sarah going through every single ordinance and
Yeah.
having a meeting to go, like 4 meetings to go through all the ordinances with the public. So I was confused at that point as to
Yeah.
what to schedule. And so we need to schedule a public meeting, not just our committee meeting, but actually a public presentation meeting. And I think we should kind of determine what that should be about, whether that should be, do we want to throw the hornet's nest open to the FEMA plan and have Sarah present that at this point? Or do we want to clarify how we would like to review the ordinances with our community and what our recommendations are? Because I think there's who's presenting what at this point, and Sarah has her own show, and that's one way to do it. Our interaction with the community, with our ideas about what the ordinances should be is kind of another show. So is that maybe let Sarah hold the stage now and we focus on September? Or do we want to?
So Ran, I want to be clear, I understand. So you're saying
Ew.
we would talk about our ordinance revisions at the FEMA meetings?
No, what I'm saying is that right now Sarah is going meeting by meeting and providing a review of the current ordinances and what our community plan says about those ordinances.
Right.
And she kind of goes, this would be a good one to maybe think about how you want this to be updated. And I wasn't sure from one-on-one conversations with Doc Sievert here, if that's the way he saw it being productive moving forward. Or if
Yeah.
so I guess there's three options. Sarah continues to present the ordinances based on her understanding and reads them through and shares that with the audience and suggests ideas. Sarah, we do that in some form with what we were talking about earlier. I don't know if we're quite ready to do that in a public, like a educational meeting. Sarah has the FEMA subject on her mind, and the community probably needs to become aware of that. So what should be the next public presentation, educational meeting presented?
So
That's what I'm asking.
got it. So I just want to make a strong plea for just looking at our schedule and stuff, is we have the NCA meeting on Sunday, September 1st.
Yes.
And that's presenting where we are on this project, as I understand it. It does not include any conversation about FEMA or anything else. It's just where are we on this project?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I think since we're trying to get the plan in front of people to get them a copy in September, I would suggest that I don't know that we need any more meetings with Sarah to get our document out to the community and get them reading it and get them responding to us. So I think we should stay away from FEMA and that whole thing and get done. And
As far as our committee work is.
yes. Well, no. I mean, as far as the public.
Okay.
The public is not, the last meeting we had 10 community members at it. We've got a small group of people following this process, and I think we need to finish it. And obviously the document goes out to everyone can see it. We'll send it, we can do whatever to get everyone's attention. But I just don't think we should dovetail with the FEMA process at this point. We're too close to the finish line.
So the FEMA, here's my thoughts on this. The biggest thing that we don't have yet in terms of the ordinances is for the 406 language and how that's going to be inserted in all of our residential zones. And that is totally dependent on Sarah when that comes forward. And they've got consultants working, blah, blah, we've heard it all. And so we're just dependent on that language because that's going to be the major change to our ordinances. In terms of FEMA, there are communities, Pacific City being one, in terms of unincorporated communities, Pacific City probably being the most affected. All of the change in the requirements are going to be structural. So in Nescoin, if you look at the flood maps, it's kind of all the properties along the beach, west of breakers. I don't know about North Nescoin, where that is in the floods. I didn't look that far north. And the golf course and anything. So the things are going to be like when if the golf course were going to build a new bridge, which it already has over some of those. So if we back up a couple of years and the golf course says, we got to replace this bridge, we got to build a new bridge. The permitting on that would be unbelievable with FEMA. The engineering analysis that you'd have to do, it'd be crazy. Luckily for the golf course, most of that work has been done, you know. So the only thing it really is going to affect, and this is my opinion, on the golf course is anything that the folks there want to do with the clubhouse or whatever, because that's within the flood zone as well. So I agree that the FEMA is not going to impact us, and if it does, you know, it may mean, you know, you redo your driveway along the beach, you're going to have to use something porous or something. I don't know. You know, there could be things. Who knows what they're going to do, like that. So I wouldn't worry about FEMA. I am concerned that we don't have the 406 language inserted yet.
But when does that, so.
Yeah, it gets a little clunky here.
Well, right, and I wasn't talking about, I think the FEMA stuff is gonna impact the community plan. I wanna be clear, it is. It's, you know, in odd ways, but I've never seen kind of a federal effort like that that doesn't affect beyond what it initially sets out to do. And I'm not being political or jaded. I'm just saying that's my practical experience, having done environmental impact statements and stuff.
Yeah.
But the piece I'm most concerned about is you know, I'm going to be honest. Tom is critical to us completing our work. And I feel like we've put a huge burden on Tom already. And I don't want to miss our opportunity here of, you know, kind of wrapping it up before Sarah gets sidetracked on FEMA, because Tom, other people are going to want Tom's time, I know. And we're like at the front of the line now, and I'm very reluctant to give that up unless I just think we have to get done. And then if FEMA gets going with all its magic and excitement, and we have an issue with the community plan, we will still be in the process of adoption and can revise it. I mean, there's Sarah puts us on the agenda. We're not on the agenda for county approval until Sarah puts us there. What I'm encouraging us to do is get our work done. Yeah. And then if we need to tweak, we can. But I'm worried someone else is going to step up and say, Tom, wait, you know, we got to do this thing. And then we've lost Tom's focus on this document, which is, you know, I think a lifesaver for all of us.
Yeah. So it gets back to my question is, can we wrestle the ordinance discussion away from Sarah, or do we continue to have Sarah present each thing in kind of a one by one issue? I mean, it just seems like we need to do something on our own here.
I think what we should do with Sarah at this point, and she may actually even appreciate this, but so Guy's drafted this language and it has some good questions. There's nothing that moves things forward as much as putting something on the table and moving with it. I'm serious. Yeah. Because we waited for everything. We waited for the planning, and I'm not saying bad faith. I'm just saying life's tough. We've waited for the planning consultants. We thought we were going to get some help. We thought that, I think we just go right up the center and Sarah will say, hold it, wait, I need to put in X, Y, and Z. That'll be the closest we come to getting the language out of her and also getting county council's attention. So I'm kind of a, you know, I'm the person who thought Kamala Harris absolutely should do an immigration ad right at the beginning to just go right up in the face of the storm, which is exactly what she did. So that's who I am, and I'm just going to say that's always my preferred route. Get it done, present it, and let them catch up with you.
I appreciate.
They won't know their objections until we make a statement.
That's right. So,
so the other thing, let's do that. I fully agree. Let's move forward. I'll submit language to make it a little clearer about the priority stuff. We all should submit our thoughts about the future. You know, what our future interests or things that how did we describe it? Building block. No, it wasn't buildable. What did Tom use the word? Dir-
It's the
direct-
aspirational asks.
Yeah.
Dir-
but we-
Direct,
And I'm
dir-
gonna
directions for the future.
Yeah,
Directions
and I'm
for
just
the
gonna
future.
submit that. I've got that on my
Yeah.
to-do list and I'm.
Let's
gonna do
everybody do that, their ideas.
Okay.
So we all see what we, and then we can finalize, we can put a list together at our next meeting of those things, I think. They're gonna be pretty clear, and it doesn't have to be lengthy. I mean, they could be, you know, a couple sentences for each.
Sentence, yeah.
Yeah, and if
Okay.
we
And,
need to, if we need to expand them, we can, but we need to get the ideas down.
Yeah,
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, I'm with Lynn. Let's push it. And if there's a problem, we'll find out. And,
Yeah,
you know,
that's how
one
you
of these
find out the problem instead of not being able to do anything,
I-
waiting, waiting.
Yeah,
and waiting.
and I am also like, because I think the 406, one of my things about the 406 language, and this question has been asked Sarah before, is are we just going to be given this language and have no say at all in how it's going to fit in with our ordinances, or are they going to give us some sample language and we can kind of shape it until the point where everybody's in agreement that it fits?
The
I don't
counties-
know.
no, I mean, I gotta tell you, and it's not just because I'm married to someone who used to practice law. The state's lawyers are gonna want the counties to absolutely put this in, and just every time you ask them a question, they're gonna say you're on the clock. Because they want to get this done and they're not gonna want 36 counties taking a stab at writing their version of state
Yeah.
law.
I'm wondering then why we even bother with everybody having consultants if the
Because
language is already fixed.
That's how you get the votes in the legislature, just saying.
God. Okay, more
Oh,
depression here.
damn.
Okay,
I'm sorry, but I'm in my son-in-law's office and he has these hanging shelves over, and I've now hit my head 2 or 3 times.
oh, sorry.
Sorry. Anyway, so if I swore and you heard me, that was it. Okay.
Ouch.
Okay, so we got a lot of work to do, and we have also let us determine what we want to present this month and next month. So if we already have our hands full with the September 1st presentation of the community vision and values for releasing to everyone, maybe that's enough of a public meeting for this month. And we
It
look at
is.
September and go like, okay, we're gonna start including these, we're gonna write up these things and we're gonna start reviewing them. We're gonna have public meetings to share them like we did the vision and values.
Yeah,
I think that that's great, because I'd like to have something that the public can chew on a little more and get some flavor out of. So far, it seems like educational, but kind of then what? So I like this direction. I really appreciate it from everyone. So
Good for us next meeting or this meeting to figure out when we would have the September meetings for the public so that we can tell them that at the NCA meeting.
right.
yeah, I think that would be good to set even now, to even look at our calendars now and say when we think that would be.
Okay, Jeff would like that. So, and is this kind of saying to Sarah, if you have a FEMA thing, put it on hold. We're not, that's not, we're gonna be working on our stuff, our community plan, and
Yeah.
push that out a little,
Yep.
not this month. Okay,
So if we look at a community meeting in September, what looks good to you all? And particularly Tom gets to pick this timing because that's when we've got to have a draft. I mean, I'm looking at the week of the 16th or even the 23rd. September is a big, long month.
September 23rd week would be better for me.
Yep. Okay. What's a good day for you, Tom?
You're talking about it, us meeting or a general meeting?
The
General meeting.
general meeting.
I
Are we
won't
gonna-
be-
Are we,
I won't be here that week, but don't change the meeting for me. I could do it the week before.
okay, let me verify. I've got I've got another calendar. Unfortunately, I don't have everything transferred that far in advance.
Okay.
Things are catching up with me. So give me a second on that. But is a Saturday meeting, I could do either one.
So the
Okay.
28th,
Well, Lori can't do the 28th. I think, is that what you said, Lori?
Right.
20
I could do the 21st.
21st would
21st.
be all right.
Okay, let's do
I could
that.
do the 21st.
okay?
All right.
So that will be, now we have the question of whether we should continue to work with Michael to have the meetings in that setting as a public as a hybrid meeting. How do you, does that work for, I mean, we haven't really filled out its capacity completely. So I think that's still a functional space. And he may be gone by then, so it may not work for him, or maybe
The
he
the golf course may be available then.
okay,
I
Right.
don't know,
that's right,
I don't know that the golf course will still be open then.
right. Which kind of works because it shouldn't be too cold yet or anything.
Right.
So I'll just say I'll locate a live forum for this and so you don't have to think about it, but I'll be working on that to locate one location or the other for the public meeting part. And so that meeting will be focused on how do we say what this is, an update of the documents for the community plan to be presented.
Yeah, and I
that's-
think we need to also signal we're getting close to the finish line, people, so speak up. Doors closing.
Let's say that we're actually like reviewing ordinances and et cetera, not just vision. Like this is the practical,
Yeah.
we're trying to get things down in writing that we want the county to implement.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could you put that in a succinct manner, an update for the documents?
We need content.
I
Yeah.
think we could be, on by the 21st, we'll have recommendations for everything. And like Lynn and others, we've all said, we'll have recommendations for even ordinance changes, not impacting use, but other language. And I would hope by then we would have some building recommendations. We'd have the future. I mean, we're really at a point where we could have a pretty complete draft of the plan by the 21st. If we're going to have, our committee is going to meet at the end of this month. We'll meet in September at least once as a committee.
We meet every other week.
I think we would be close to having a draft
every 2
plan
weeks.
by the 21st. Now that's without, and who knows what these consultants are going to drop in on us, but we can't control that. We can just move ahead with what we got, as Lynn says,
Right.
and put things on paper. And okay, if they come along and say you got to change this, then we'll know we can work on that. But we'll just keep moving ahead.
Okay, so I will send you a description of what will be at that meeting, and you guys can fix it if it's broken.
Okay, I think that I agree. And I think, and again, I don't think as long as we mark all this draft, we're in great shape.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
people only close their minds when they think something's a fait accompli and they don't get to participate. And as long as they know it's a draft, and we're listening, and we've still got extra time in there to take another bite at the apple in October and still be done by Thanksgiving, I think that's a great plan.
Okay. All right. Well, that's very helpful. Thank you very much to get these things with dates and content to aspire to or to
Yeah.
No.
develop into
No.
or something.
No aspirations, just nothing but full steam ahead.
Real work.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's the um September 21st meeting, and we have the 26th that we're going to. I'm gonna put together from this page and a half of scribbling. And so I have a couple documents for Jeff, and all these things will go before you before they go to Jeff. So keep your eye out for them and correct me if I'm incorrect.
And what time is the NCA meet, or excuse me, the NCA meeting on Labor Day weekend? What is
4
the
o'clock.
time of day?
4
4
o'clock
o'clock.
Sunday.
On Sunday.
Okay,
Yeah.
And we're also having a presentation by the Midnight Pavers, who are somewhat promoting a public works project with cooperation of the county. They're
Oh,
getting,
really?
which is really cool, and they're gonna ask for public funding contributions. And the NCA's committed 25,000 and it's looking for matching funds from the community. So the total budget's like $120,000. It's a lot of labor and stuff donated, but the county's thrown in 47 grand in materials. So it's,
it is the least they can do, Ran, given
Yeah,
that this is their responsibility.
it's actually the most they can do.
Yeah, I know.
It's both.
But it's both.
So anyway, that's an exciting development. Those guys were kind of cussing all the time when they were doing it. And now they're kind of working collaboratively, and I think it's pretty exciting. It's a good direction for the community to look at how to solve their own problems. It has a lot to do with what we're doing with our community plan. So I think there's a good spirit to it. So that'll be in the same meeting as our goal, vision and value statement being distributed. So, okay, so until the 26th, I'm leaving for a week, so I'm gonna be writing this up while I'm in the Berkshires.
Nice.
Whoa,
Nice.
whoa.
There are worse places to be,
That's
Ran.
right. And we've got a Yo-Yo Ma rehearsal we get to go to, and
Hey,
Oh,
cool
sweet.
stuff.
hey, my favorite.
Yeah,
So does this mean you're gonna be gone Wednesday?
I will be gone Wednesday. No planning for me.
Oh, geez. All right. Well, we missed you last Wednesday. So it's there are rules.
All right, I'll have some good bulls.
Okay.
So let's see, I have to remember my order here. Behind this screen, the wizard tells me I have to remember my checklist. Okay, then what, I did all these other things. We got to stop the recording and then leave the meeting there. Last time I did.
No, we have to, do we have the agenda
Oh, for next meeting?
for our next
Is
meeting?
the agenda for next meeting just the document,
Well, we're gonna
Well-
review.
our contributions to the document, and what else you need from us, Tom?
I think that'll probably be enough to keep us
Yep.
busy.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
review any revisions to vision and values, review any revision to the ordinance language, and then finalize statements on future direction or whatever we're calling that line.
Yeah, so it's
yeah.
all the prep work for the presentation.
Meeting on the second, meeting
Yeah.
on the second.
Public.
Yep.
Yeah, so that will be the agenda, the significant impact of the agenda. And that I can get out quickly to Jeff and to all of you. So we affirm that agenda and outline the public meeting. Those will be the two things I'll work on to get to you. And then we go and do all our other work. Okay,
Okay,
All right, so thank you all. There's no other public to give public input. So we will adjourn the meeting. Let me stop the recording. Recording is stopped.
All right.